Hello, thanks so much for joining me. My name is Jessie, and this is my channel, The Caffeinated Bookworm. And I am going to be reviewing I Am Watching You by Teresa Driscoll. So, this is the book that we read for June for the book club that I'm in at work. And it was a captivating book. Um, Once I started it, I ended up tearing through it in about 2 days. So it starts with a woman. I think her name was Ella. It's been a minute. I think her name was Ella. She's on a train in I'm assuming London or England or somewhere, and she sees these guys get on the train and they're carrying. I didn't realize that bin bags were trash bags because that's not what we call them here. But they get on the train and they're carrying bin bags. And as I'm reading it, I'm imagining something along the lines of a duffel bag. But it was actually trash bags, and they've got all their clothes in it. And she's, kind of amused, nostalgic, thinking about how teenage boys just throw everything into bin bags instead of actually packing. Then they start flirting with these two girls that are on the train. And again, she doesn't really think anything of it until they mention that they just got out of prison. And she's going to say something. She's going to intervene. She's going to ask the girls, to contact their parents to let them know where they are and what's going on. Which, I mean, as a mom, it didn't entirely strike me as odd for her to do that. When we were talking through this in the book club at work, though, some people did mention that seemed a little strange. But I mean, I was the type of mom that if I'm in a park and I'm watching my kids, I am watching all the kids. Like, don't go near the road. Don't go off with somebody I didn't see you come in with. If somebody comes into the park without kids, I'm wary of them. I've always been that type of person when it comes to children. And so the fact that she's kind of watching out for these girls doesn't really strike me as weird. But then something happens. One of the girls has an encounter with one of the guys. And so the woman kind of backs off. And she doesn't say anything. Well, the next day she wakes up and she sees on the news that one of the girls is missing. And eventually her name is leaked to the press, and people are basically blaming her for the whole situation. It's a horrible situation to be in, I can imagine, because people have their opinions, people have their say, but people also haven't been in certain situations that they like to judge. And so the author did a really good job of really putting Elle's perspective into it and how she felt after people started sending her nasty letters, leaving phone calls, sending death threats. And she kind of gets into this situation where she's obsessed with this, and the book is back and forth. So the first thing that really put me off about the book was that it was in a number of different point of views. So you have the first person omniscient, I guess, maybe not omniscient, but you have first person at least with Ella. So when you are reading her section of the book, it is I. But then you move into third person omniscient and then third person limited, depending on who you're reading about. And it goes through different people. So it'll go through the friend who was left behind. It'll go through the sister. It goes through the private investigator that Elle eventually ends up hiring because she's receiving what amounts to threatening letters in the mail. She owns a flower shop. Her son helps her out there every once in a while. Her husband, I think it was Tony, he gets a little strange about the whole situation. He doesn't want her at the flower shop by herself. He doesn't want her going out by herself. He doesn't want her inserting herself into the investigation with regards to the missing girl. And so, as the book goes on, you kind of have this sense that there's something strange about Tony. And I'm trying not to give too much away. The biggest problem that I have with this book, and it's not the point of views, it's the fact that the author spent so much time I'm trying to think of a good analogy. There's a movie, the A-Team. Okay, so in the A-Team, the newer one, with Liam Neeson, so they do that thing where they're like distraction, and they're making you look over here because there's an explosion, and then they're making you look over here because there's loud noises, and they're making you look over here, but in the meantime, like, they're like way over here where you're not even looking. And that's what it felt like with this book, because the author had me thinking it was Sarah's father. It had me thinking it could have been Tony. It had me looking at Elle, like, was it Elle and she's actually crazy? It had me looking even at Elle's son. And for a brief moment, maybe even the investigator. And then there's this like whole lineup of people that it could potentially be. And so when it comes down to who it actually was, it's none of these people. You get to the end, there's a brief introduction of this person. I mean, he had been mentioned throughout the book in small sections, but you get to the end of the book and it tells you who he is, and you're just like, wait, what? Like, and there's just so much drama. Like, I'm not saying that this isn't believable. The author does a really good job making this believable, because somebody's disappearance affects so many people. It doesn't just affect the mother. It affects the witness. They do a really good job showing how it affects the witness, and not only the witness, but like how the witness reacts to the situation, how her reaction affects the family, her family, and then like the breakdown that can quite often happen in situations where a child has disappeared or something's happened to a child. The breakdown of the relationship between the mother and the father, whether it was already broken before or not. Like those left behind, like the sister, the friends, how it can start to eat away at relationships, even strong relationships. And so, like I said, she does a really good job, but my whole problem is I felt gypped. And it's not quite the extreme that Gone Girl was, because when I was finished with Gone Girl, I felt so cheated. I threw the freaking book across the room. But it's still, like, at the end, like, I was so confused. Like, when I first finished it, I was like, oh, this is a 5-star book. And then as, like, the time went on, like, the next day, I was thinking about it. I was like, no, I was like, maybe it's a 4.5. By the time we got to talking about it in the book club, I was like, no, this is maybe a 3-star book, if that, because of the way I felt so deceived by just the lead up and the build up of these characters that you are suspecting in your mind. Aside from that, like I said, there's a lot of good parts in this book. There's some of the characters come across as flat, but some of the characters really get to you. And Anna's father in particular really got to me, because you don't know, like, the things that are going on inside someone's head. And there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray in these characters. And that is another thing that the author does particularly well, is she does not make anybody out to be like a saint or a demon. Like, there's a lot of gray in here. It's extremely believable in certain situations. And it could have been, I think, a 5-star book. If I'm rating it on Goodreads, which I am going to have to go rate it on Goodreads, it could have been a 5-star book. I mean, if she leads you through the investigation, not only of the missing girl, but of where the letters are coming from. And that's another thing. Like, when you realize where the letters are coming from, that also was kind of like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And if it had been a true, oh, I didn't see that coming situation, I mean, it could have been a stellar book, like an explosively stellar book. But when you get to it, you're like, wait, but what about this and this and this and this and this? Why did you lead me on a wild goose chase? It was a really strange thing for me to read. But all in all, it was a very interesting book. It was an intriguing book. Like I said, I read it in about 2 days after I started. And I mean, I guess it's a good summer read. I'm not really sure what the definition of a summer read is, but I imagine, like, if you're on the beach and you need something quick to read and, a little bit intriguing, this would be it. It was a good book. I've definitely read better. especially when it comes to like the thriller mystery type books. I feel like the author could have done so much better, but I'm also glad that it wasn't a situation where I threw the book because it was my phone. I was reading it on my phone. I ordered it on Kindle. So our next book that we are reading for the book club is The Maidens by Alex Micheletus. I read The Silent Patient. I had actually gotten The Silent Patient as an advanced reader copy, and I liked it. I did like it. I thought it was intriguing, interesting. I was glad to have read it. And so hopefully this one is as intriguing as that one. The premise of it sounds devastating. So this is going to be the next one we're reading for the book club for July. I am going to try to get through Memories of Ice and Hyperion first before I pick this up, just because those are things that have already been on my list and that I have other obligations to. So, but thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe below. You have a wonderful day.